Okay, great. Hello, everybody, and all our viewers. It's Jeff Jenkins and Eric Clayman again for our weekly Facebook Live program. We do these every Thursday afternoon at 2 p.m. And today we're going to be talking about mortgages and foreclosures in New Jersey, and if there's been any recent changes to various things. So that's our topic for today. And we first wanted to start off by just briefly going over what a foreclosure is. I'm sure not to insult anybody's intelligence, but why not? So
let's start from the beginning, Jeff.
Okay.
We've heard the expression, your home is your biggest investment, and it's also your biggest loan, typically.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to go to the bank and borrow $200,000 on your signature.
Not for us anyway. Or it is for us.
It is for us. Okay, maybe you.
Yeah.
It is for us anyway. So to get to 200, but when you put your home up as collateral for a loan, when you're purchasing a home, you can get that kind of money and more, as many of us have. And we get what's called a mortgage against the home, which is a lien. So you borrow the money and you promise to pay it back as any other bank loan would be, but you put your home up as collateral. Often they escrow, which means you're paying the principal and interest, you're paying down the loan, and you're paying for real estate taxes and homeowners insurance as well. So sometimes, unfortunately, people default. No fault of their own. A job situation, a health situation. In New Jersey, real estate taxes are so expensive that you move into your home and you don't realize quite how expensive it's going to be. For whatever reason, if you fall behind and if you're in default, and there are other defaults, but for today's purposes, the default that we see the most are defaults in payments. The mortgage company can hire a lawyer and start a lawsuit against you called a foreclosure proceeding. And that can run all the way to sheriff sale, right, Jeff?
Yes. The sheriff sale would be the culmination of the foreclosure process if it's not stopped.
And a sheriff sale means that the sheriff of your county, that's how it's done in New Jersey, is able to write a deed and sign your property over to the successful purchaser at a sheriff sale. And that's something which has to be stopped. That's what we do, really. By filing a bankruptcy petition, we stop sheriff sales, we stop foreclosures and keep people in their homes. And it's legal and it works. When Congress created the bankruptcy code, and it's been changed several times, the last big amendment was in 2005, but there always has been an automatic stay which stops collection actions, including foreclosures and sheriff sales, and plans to catch up. And Jeff, we can do that. We can, even through COVID, we can stop people from losing their homes. And I do want to ask you this. As I said, once there's a default, people hire a lawyer, the mortgage company, hires a lawyer, and there's a summons and complaint. If you, as a homeowner, receive a summons and complaint in foreclosure, what must you do?
Well, the prudent thing to do would be to go see an attorney and show them what you've got and talk to them about it. Just like our clients would bring that in for us to see, and we would talk to them about what we think they ought to do, including but not limited to a bankruptcy filing. And I should point out, Eric, that you and I talked about this a little earlier today. The delinquency rate in New Jersey for mortgages is significant. In fact, we're fourth in the nation right now.
Way to go.
And that's not a good thing.
No.
With more than 10% of our mortgages being delinquent. And in 2018, we actually led the nation in mortgage delinquencies.
We were number one, huh?
Yeah, but it's not a good number one, I don't think.
No. And it goes, there's all sorts of policy reasons. First of all, our homes are expensive. Real estate's expensive. And secondly, as we talked about, real estate taxes are so very high. And we're near New York and near Pennsylvania. Near Philadelphia, near New York City. And that keeps our property values high, which makes the mortgage payments high. And we vote for people who increase our real estate taxes and our gas taxes and our sales taxes and our estate taxes and our income taxes. So, something has to give.
Yeah, some of us do vote for people like that. It's true.
Again and again.
Mhm.
Enough on the policy reasons, but it is a serious thing. When you call our office, if you've received a summons and complaint, just what Jeff said, you have to call a lawyer. We recommend you call us, but you have to call a lawyer because you can lose rights. Remember, the mortgage company has hired a lawyer. They must know why, so you should hire a lawyer too. Now, when you hire an attorney or you speak to us, we are not judgmental about it. This is the way we try to speak to our clients. It's like driving a car, and I think I said this before in another episode. If not, this is good. Listen to this. This is a good one. It's like driving in a car. There's a big windshield in your car, and that's to look forward. But there's only a real small rear view mirror, and that's to look backwards. We're not about talking to you about your mistakes, about looking backwards. We're about looking through the forward windshield and looking the future and how you're going to save your house, live in your house for as long as possible, and feel just a great sense of relief, right, Jeff? That's what clients tell us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We wanted to also talk about how a bankruptcy works with a foreclosure. And Eric and I have talked about that before, but just to kind of go over it again, if you were to come in and see us and you had a foreclosure complaint and summons, and we talked to you about your situation and felt that doing a bankruptcy would be the best thing that you could do, we would put you, and assuming you wanted to keep your house, we would put you in a Chapter 13. It's a personal reorganization. And if you've watched our show before, we talk about Chapter 7s and Chapter 13s. Those are the kinds of bankruptcies that we do here. They get their name from what chapter they're in the Federal Bankruptcy Code. Chapter 7, you're just erasing erasable debts. Chapter 13, you're paying back something of what you owe. And so if you're behind on something that you want to keep, like you're behind on your mortgage and you want to keep your house, you need a paying kind of bankruptcy. So we do a Chapter 13. And when we do, there's several different things that we can do to take care of arrears that exist so that you can keep your home. The first thing we would look at is, are the arrears reasonable enough? In other words, they're not too significant that it's possible you could pay them back over 5 years through the Chapter 13 trustee while resuming your normal monthly mortgage payments. So
well, Jeff, if you do that, if you're in default, the mortgage company won't accept regular monthly payments. But if you file Chapter 13,
they absolutely will. And in fact, they must. They must. So there's no problem to do a bankruptcy and do what we're talking about. It can be done. We don't need the mortgage company's permission.
Right.
In fact, they can't, they can do whatever they want to do, but that's the way it is. Another thing that we do sometimes, if the arrears are really high, is we might propose some loss mitigation options that the mortgage company might provide, particularly a loan modification. A lot of times mortgage companies will recast your loan and take everything that you owe and put it into one big ball, and you're going to pay that off over a period of time, and they'll try to keep your payment the same by reducing your interest rate and or extending the term of the loan. And those are generally successful. The paying the arrears through the trustee is foolproof. It can absolutely be done. Don't need anybody's permission. But the loan modification, the mortgage company is going to have to agree to that. And then another thing that we do sometimes is we might offer to sell the property. If our client doesn't really want to stay there so much and they really owe a lot of money, but there's some equity in the home they want to preserve, they don't want to lose the thing at sheriff sale. They've got $100,000 of equity in the home. They want to be able to walk away from the whole process with that $100,000. And so we may offer to sell the property and either continue to make monthly payments or not necessarily. So that's kind of how a bankruptcy would take care of a foreclosure.
Now, what happens a lot of times is the clients see us and we propose, as the first example, the arrears cure. You resume regular monthly payments and pay the arrears over 60 months. Well, what makes that more affordable? There's a couple things. Generally, unsecured creditors, such as credit cards and medical bills, payday loans, personal loans, we can wipe out or significantly reduce.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're wiping out the credit cards and the medical bills, you can focus on paying the mortgage plus the arrears. Secondly, some people have second mortgage home equity loans, what they call the HELOCs. So they call them now home equity lines of credit, but home equity loans, second mortgages. And we can sometimes treat them just like credit cards, wipe them out completely.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a second mortgage against your home that is making your home unaffordable, you should give us a call. We may be able to treat them differently. A lot of it has to do with the equity in your house as well as your income, but it's worth calling us just to explore that option. So there's two things we're doing in addition to what Jeff said. We are wiping out your unsecured debt or significantly reducing it on most of our cases. And we might be able to treat your second mortgage as well.
We should mention, Eric, maybe one last thing. When we do a bankruptcy, we can do this in a Chapter 7 or a Chapter 13. Our client may want to just give the property back to the mortgage company.
Right.
They might not want to keep it. Maybe they're too far behind to even think about taking care of the arrears. And so
or maybe their next door neighbor just bought two large dogs and they can't imagine living next to a house that has two large dogs.
Yeah, there is that.
Yes.
But if we do that, whether it's in a Chapter 13, we elect to surrender the property to the mortgage company, or in a Chapter 7, where our client just wants to walk away from the property. The good thing about the bankruptcy proceeding, either kind, is that they're going to, when you finish and you get your discharge, that's what we're shooting for. That's kind of the goal of a bankruptcy, is to get dischargeable debts discharged.
Forgivable debts discharged.
Well, you can say that too. And when you do that, one of the things, or one of the debts that gets discharged, is your mortgage loan. So the mortgage company still has a lien on your property, but you don't owe them any money, as strange as that might sound. And so if you end up giving your house back to them, they sell it to somebody else, and you might still owe them some money, and it could be significant, $100,000, $200,000. They could never look to you for that money because the bankruptcy got rid of that debt. It discharged that particular loan.
And we've seen that. We saw that a lot during the mortgage crisis in the last decade, when everyone was getting mortgages and they were valuing houses so high. And people would see us, and it just wasn't worth paying back the debt.
Right.
But there were so many foreclosures, people could live in their house for free. Because that's an interesting legal concept. Although in a bankruptcy, you're surrendering the house because you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a surrender for bankruptcy purposes, not a surrender for, hey, I have to move out right away.
Right.
So we've had clients stay in their properties without having to pay their mortgages for significant periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
But Jeff, speaking of time, this is a strange time right now.
Yes.
And there are no sheriff sales per se or evictions. No sheriff sales, when I say per se, forget the Latin. There are no residential sheriff sales right now. There are commercial sheriff sales, right?
Yes. Yeah. Our governor in the state of New Jersey has promulgated various orders since the virus happened. And one of them said that there couldn't be any more sheriff sales until the end of this year. And he could change that again with a stroke of a pen and extend the time. But that's where it is right now. And he also said that there couldn't be any evictions, whether it's a landlord-tenant situation or whether it's the result of your house going through a foreclosure, being sold at sheriff's sale, and now the mortgage company wants you out of the property. Neither one of those things can happen right now until March 25th of next year. That's the most recent deadline. I'm sorry, it was January 25th, wasn't it?
I think so.
January 25th.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the utility stuff.
So
January 25th is our deadline right now for evictions to take place again, unless the governor does something otherwise.
But we have to emphasize, don't wait to January 24th to see an attorney. if you received a summons and complaint in foreclosure, summons and complaint where you're named as a defendant in a landlord-tenant matter, or if you're named as a defendant in any action, you must speak to a lawyer right away, because true, there can't be an eviction, but there are other legal rights which you need to preserve.
Right. Right.
How about those utilities? You wanted to mention those utilities?
We don't.
Well, we can say, okay.
Let's
We'll skip. You can listen back 4 episodes. We talked all about utilities.
Yeah, there you go. In New Jersey right now, just to kind of follow up these timetables a little bit, any federally insured loan, there's a foreclosure moratorium that comes from the federal government, and there can be no foreclosure action on those loans until the end of this year.
Right.
The governor says there can't be a sheriff sale. The federal government says if you've got a federally insured loan, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, VA, FHA, USDA, there can't be any foreclosure activity right now until the end of the year, obviously, unless that changes.
Well, there can be, just to be clear, there can be activity, right? There just can't be a sheriff sale. Is that true?
No, the foreclosure has to stop.
They can't. Oh, okay.
No, the federally insured loans, unless, like I think you were starting to talk about, if it's a commercial loan, right, or if the property's been abandoned, then that doesn't apply. That moratorium on foreclosures for federally insured loans wouldn't apply in one of those cases. And keep in mind that the mortgage loans that are out there, about 70% are federally insured. So we've got 30% that aren't. And for the 30% that aren't, they're free to proceed with a foreclosure right now. So 3 out of every 10 mortgages in New Jersey, the mortgage company there's nothing to stop them from doing a foreclosure. The only thing they can't do is get the property to sheriff sale, nor can there be an eviction if there was a sheriff sale.
Gotcha. So we learned a lot of statistics. So if we're taking a walk around the block, Jeff, and if it's a big block, and there's 30 homes, on average, 3 of them would be in foreclosure in New Jersey, right? 1 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
And of those 3, 1 of them could be proceeding to sheriff sale, about 1 out of 3.
Yep.
So it's that's significant,
mm-hmm,
out of every 30 homes. So it's really, really important. If you're behind with your mortgage, even if you haven't received a summons and complaint yet, you really need to speak to an attorney about your options. And we'd like you to call us. This is what we do, and we've been doing it for how long? 30 years. More. My hair keeps getting grayer.
Yeah. I think I'm losing mine. You're forgetting how long it's been.
Yeah, it's been
so long.
But you can call us. So that's really such a rewarding part of the job. And when I first started working with Jeff, I used to come home and say, people come in crying and they come in smiling. But it's come out. Go ahead. Say that again. Come in crying and go out smiling, because we do deal with people in the most vulnerable economic position. You're losing your house, sometimes your car, sometimes your wages are garnished, your bank account is levied. And we help people in those very vulnerable positions. We really do. It works. The cases work. Nobody wants to file bankruptcy. We know that. But there's reasons that the law was created. It's legal, it's fair, and you have experienced lawyers that can help you out of a situation. If your situation is serious enough to consider filing bankruptcy, call us, because we can help you save your house, save your car, stop a wage garnishment, and really deal with the IRS as well, Jeff. We've talked about that in prior episodes.
Yeah, we sure have. The another thing that we've tried to stress in previous programs is that whether we're talking about a foreclosure and then a sheriff sale or a landlord-tenant action, which we spoke about last week, we don't need to get into that again right now. But in each one of those things, there comes a time when, according to the bankruptcy code, if we file a bankruptcy after a certain point in that process, we can't do anything anymore. So when we're talking about foreclosures, the bankruptcy code says if your house has been sold at a foreclosure sale, the protection provisions of the bankruptcy code no longer apply if you file a bankruptcy. So that's why it's extremely important. If you've got a home and you want to keep it and you're concerned about what's going on, you should absolutely get in to see an attorney, whether it's us or somebody else. Bring whatever materials you have, things that you've received in the mail from the mortgage company's attorneys, and let's see what's going on, because what we don't want to happen for your sake is that you don't do anything and then a sheriff's sale happens and then you come in to see us and we're going to say, well, we can't keep you in the property. I mean, there's some little things that we can do to keep you there for the time being, but
Right.
but in over the long haul, we wouldn't be able to let you keep your house, and because you allowed it to go to a sheriff's sale. And that's something we would be very sensitive about, and would, if we were going to do bankruptcy, would encourage you to file before the sheriff's sale so that we could let you hang on to your house.
It's very frustrating. I talked a lot today about how rewarding the job is when people come in and see us and they walk in smiling and they walk out smiling.
I might walk.
But it's frustrating if you come in to see us after there's a judgment for possession in a landlord-tenant action or after the sheriff's sale. We have the tools, but we're not allowed to use them.
Right.
At that point.
That's right. So that's really something important to keep in mind. And is there anything else we needed to go over today?
Jeff, we can just remind people that we have a kind and non-judgmental staff.
Yes.
And we have 4 lawyers who have been doing this, all are experienced bankruptcy lawyers. Before you choose a bankruptcy firm, make sure there's more than one lawyer in the office, and make sure they do this not as a side job, but they are a law office that handles a great many bankruptcy cases. That's very, very important. And Jeff, we can also remind them that next week, Thursday at 2,
we'll be here again talking about something else.
Something else at the edge of the seat. The best 20 minutes on Facebook, Jeff.
Yeah, there you go. So if you tuned in today, I'm glad you did. We're glad you did. And I hope you listen to us next week, same time, same place, 2 o'clock Thursday afternoon. Until then, goodbye and God bless.